This is our first Communication Access Connect session. We're going to try and make this a routine and welcome you and any friends that you invite in the future or today even. Okay. I'm Darlene Hansen, and I am the Director of Communication Services or Communications with Disability Voices United. I'm going to open it up to Lorna, and she's going to explain to us about the Spanish translation. So what we'll need to do is, if you are not on the Spanish channel and if you're not hearing me, then, or you need to switch, you're going to be going to the interpretation button on the bottom of your screen and selecting English. So if you have any audio difficulties anywhere along the line, go there. Okay, I want to introduce our team from Disability Voices United and DRC. So will we start with you, Megan, from DRC? Introduce yourself real quick.
Hi all. I apologize in advance for any background noise. I have a little tiny coworker today. My name is Megan Lizette. I'm a supervising attorney with Disability Rights California. And I think some of you look familiar. Some of you may have attended the training, 3-part training we provided a few weeks back. So it's great to see everybody again. And nice to meet you to all the newcomers.
Thanks, Megan. And Megan's with Disability Rights California, which is a group that we are partnering with on the Communication Disabilities Access Network grant. Next, I'm going to have Veas. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Veas. I've been with DVU for about a little more than a year, and I'm currently in my second year of the counseling master's program at Cal State LA. And so it's really nice to meet you, to see all of you guys.
Thanks, Veas. Nina, you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, I'm Nina Spiegelman with Disability Voices United, working with Darlene on our Communication Disabilities Access Network grant from Ability Central Philanthropy, and really excited to start this whole series of conversations with you all, and thank you for joining.
All right, thanks, Nina. And William.
Go ahead. Just play it.
I am William Del Rosario. I am a student and happy to be here.
Thanks, William. And Ed, want to introduce yourself? I'll admit while you introduce.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Herzl. I've been with DVU for 3 years now. I am just accepted a new title, and I can't remember what it is because I'm blanking because I've been used to introducing myself as the program assistant. I'm the Communications and Development Coordinator for Disability Voices United. And I am also providing technological assistance. So if you have any problems with technology during this call or during any communication access call, please contact me. I will be able to help you as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Ed. All right, we're going to get started here. So a little bit about the idea for today. This is all stemming from our 3-part series that we had. Some information, some feedback, your comments, and the inspiration that you gave us. This is what we've come up with so far in our next steps. But the Communication Disabilities Access Network, we're committed to gathering information about access to communication and advocating for policy change. So that's kind of the theme of where we're going to go with our conversations. These monthly meetings are an opportunity for those of us as invested people to come together and to gather support around the access of communication. Since communication is woven into all of us as people, into all of our days, and into all aspects of our lives, we figured this conversation is going to be pretty broad, but we're going to be trying to make it focused so that we can really make some changes, move to make changes. Where I'm feeling very inspired, so we're going to make changes. We encourage you all to share your thoughts, your questions and ideas in the chat. And then Nina's going to help us bring together some themes by reading through those chats as it goes along. And then if you want to actually make a comment out loud by using your voice, then we're asked that you raise your hand with the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll call on you so that we can all listen and hear what you've got to say. Hopefully that system works. We think you may have some hopes and dreams that you want to share and from your own personal experiences that will bring together these changes. So when we did our survey, which hopefully some of you or all of you participated in, there were three main themes. And they were these. There was a theme that the people in the survey were feeling there was a denial of access to communication. Another theme was that there was ineffective supports to your communication. And then the third theme was that there was lack of public awareness that there is even this need in the first place. So more than likely, what we're all going to talk about is going to be channeled into one of these three, or maybe all of these three areas. But that's kind of what we're seeing from the survey is the direction that we need to move in. Okay. Now our goal for today is to be about solutions. We really want you to think about, not that this is only the beginning of the end, but so we're thinking that you might have some solutions. You might be saying, gosh, if people would just do it this way, I think it would be better. This is a time that we want you to share these ideas so we can start shaping them as a group and hopefully using them. All right. So with that, I would like to have William open up our conversation. I'm going to pass it to you, William.
The presumption of competence allows my putting thoughts to words to occur. Then and only then will my body be ready to put forth the energy to type. How can one on the trial seat not feel tested when someone has already decided their fate? Presuming competence means that a partner trusts in me and my learning can begin. I must also presume that the partner is able to teach in a sometimes challenged way. When someone presumes competence in me, there is an understanding that they believe I am capable and my thoughts are worthy. Everyone can learn from the communicator, even while they are learning how to better express themselves. A team who begins to involve the communicator by having them be a part of the learning process will build a foundation of trust and real presumed competence. This can be done for all types of communication, from choices to 26-letter typing to speech. I would really like to give the team the encouragement to share communication success. We are not all experts. By bearing this in mind, we can keep the team working together. My inclusion challenge to you all is, don't make the exception, set the expectation. I really wish people would start with presuming competence more often.
Thank you, William. Thank you. So hopefully we were thinking that presuming competence is a theme that creates a barrier that we might be able to address. So William is sharing that with us. And then Veas, you've had some thoughts in another light.
Hi, yes. So as an individual who's blind, I overall have had been very lucky with the accessibility of most things and with the people that I know. But one thing that I have found can be tricky is that people are reluctant to know how to approach me. And it's because sometimes because they're uncomfortable with how to talk to a blind person and worried that things might be going, they might say the wrong thing. And the same applies to when I'm getting accommodations from teachers. And it's sometimes difficult to remember that this is genuine discomfort and not meaning for people to be intentionally rude. But in any case, I wish that people could learn to communicate with one another and be comfortable with one another in most situations. Thank you.
Excellent. So that's another point. And we want you to share your ideas as well, but just having communication difference be a part of our community. It creates without it, we've created a barrier. And I think that's what Veas is bringing up. So now I want to hear from all of you, okay? Either on terms of presuming competence, in terms of having people be comfortable in accommodating you and having the accommodations you need, or funding, anything that you want. These are just the 2 points that we brought up. But let's start the conversation. We're going to be taking some notes so that we can remember. Bella says, love your message, and it's so important that presumption of competence is a priority. The other people, you can do a raise of hands, I guess, or a thumbs up. Are other people feeling like presuming competence is a barrier to getting the access to their communication? Use your reaction buttons if you can. What do you think? Wait, where? You got to keep up with these things. You see a hand raise? Oh, okay. Sue's got a thumbs up. All right. Okay. Anybody want to? I think Ryan might be creating something.
You see that?
Maybe Tammy has her hand raised. Tammy, do you want to, can you share with us?
Oh, sure. Tammy, yeah.
Thank you. Well, I feel like sometimes it's like I have a hard time talking really loud. So I find that when people don't kneel down to approach me, I can't really speak loud enough for them to hear me. And if it's a crowded store or room, then that's even worse. Then I feel like I'm always repeating myself because I have weak lungs. So for me, that's a real challenge. I know that a lot of people don't like when others kneel down when you're in a wheelchair because they feel like it's degrading. But unfortunately, my wheelchair doesn't elevate like a lot do. So I feel like it's better for me for people to lower their body so that I can talk to them easier. But I don't know how to articulate that because I know there's kind of this standard practice where people don't want you to kneel down to somebody in a wheelchair. But for me, it works. So I think the degree of it's really individualized.
That's a great point. I think that, yeah, that's a good conversation. Let's hear, Sue has her hand raised as well. Sue, what did you, let's see if they go together or we'll bring it up. Where's Sue?
I'm actually speaking on behalf of my daughter. She is nonverbal and walks with a walker. And I can tell you she's 31 years old. And for 30 years, people have presumed incompetence. And then when they get to know her, then remark to me that, hey, wow, she really does understand. So it's frustrating for me as her parent, and I can only imagine what it's like for her.
Yeah. Thank you, Sue. Really good.
I'm hearing a lot of background noise from something, so it's kind of hard to.
Todd, can you please mute? For some reason, I'm not able to mute you as the admin.
Todd Rubin. Yeah. Todd, can you hear us? I can't hear you.
Todd, I'm gonna have to put you in the waiting room. Oh, he left. Never mind.
Okay, sorry, Todd. Okay, thanks. Yeah, and Isabella put, need to say my school isn't accommodating for my need for a support person. So some of this, and I think that Tammy, you kind of made me think this way. How do we want people to accommodate people with difference? As far as in the area of communication for us today, but it might apply to everything. Should there be like a standard rule?
I feel like there should be, like, maybe, I know a lot of people are very uncomfortable approaching disabled because they don't want to say the wrong thing to offend you. But I really feel like if people felt more confident, if you could teach them it's okay to ask if you don't know, people aren't going to be offended. I mean, I'm not, certainly. If somebody were to say, hey, would you like me to, is there any need you have that would help us communicate better? And I'd say, oh, please, if you wouldn't mind coming down to my level, because I don't talk very loud, then that would, I think if people, somebody that uses an AAC, is there a better position that my body should be in for me to make you feel comfortable when you're talking? I mean, why not ask that?
Right.
It is who we are, and I'm not ashamed of that. And I think none of us should be.
Yeah.
It's such a good point.
Yes, very good. Christine Ashley says, I'm speaking for my son. He uses multiple modalities to communicate. It depends on his medical status of the day, but most people do not presume competence. They pass him over. And when they do talk to him, they, even extended family, do not give him the time required to respond. And William saying, yes, communication supports can be so individual. Good point to let your preferences be known. And Megan says, Megan had a message for Bella. Yeah, I think that you all, and then we as support people have to be advocates, right? Looking to see anybody else have any thoughts on this topic, this idea? I don't want to cut anybody off before I move along. Do people think that the individuals that you're talking about, okay, do people think that the individuals that you're talking to, that you're referring to at this point, don't presume, think about presuming competence, don't presume that you're understanding the conversation? Do you think there's anything that we can do? How can we change these things? How can we even change the way people approach us? What can we do for this? I really wish people, Tammy had a good suggestion, ask me what I need.
Sometimes I feel like people don't expect me to have a response. So they just assume that I have nothing really valuable to say.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that experience.
So
and that's frustrating.
Yeah, yes. What are some ideas? Anybody have a wish that they wish people would understand? Sue says, I feel like my daughter needs an interpreter with her. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. An advocate. Nobody has a solution. Any solutions to how we're going to help change the world on this? These are always, I always say, start with pie in the sky and then we'll tweak it down to reality. But if we start from the bottom, we're going to always go, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but what would be a solution? So you're saying have an interpreter. Perhaps that's the solution. People should have people advocating for them. Anybody else have any solutions?
I guess I want to follow up with Tammy. I think that's such a great point about this, like that feeling of like, you know, that lowered expectation if nobody even expects me to, you know, have a point of view. But, you know, how would you envision like the perfect world where this would no longer be an issue? Like that you could just freely and without any, you know, any reservation be able to say, hey, you know, come closer. I need, you know, you need to hear me at a closer level, or, you know, is there some kind of more general educational, you know, kind of messaging out there? But I just, you know, I think we're kind of trying to see like, what's your thoughts about what is the perfect world in your mind?
Well, personally, I feel like the sooner we get elementary school students involved with disability awareness, I really feel like that could really transcend down the line. To have people engage with individuals when they're so young, they can really form this everlasting behavior. You know, when kids are innocent and they learn and they absorb, and if we can create some sort of a teaching credential or something where we can go in and have real open and honest and authentic conversations, age appropriate, then I really think that would change things. Kids are so forgiving. I mean, sometimes they can be really cruel too. They can kind of flip of a switch on that level, but I've had both opportunities, and I feel like if you just open up dialogue and maybe have a skit or something that's, you know, parochial that kids can relate to, that would make them realize that you can go up to anybody and talk to them. I hear a lot of parents say, like I've been in this store and I hear a parent shushing their child because they're staring at my wheelchair. And so I've had chances where I was right next to them and I said, you know, it's okay. If they have questions, I'm really open to talk about it. And I've had parents say, well, that's really great because they don't even know. So if you down the road teach kids now, when they're adults, then they're going to be more open to people when they approach their child. So anyway, that's my spiel.
No, that's such a great, that's like the best argument for like inclusion from an early, you know, the earliest possible time, but really open, you know, with real dialogue, not, you know, sort of lip service inclusion.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love how you changed that scenario around for that whole family.
Well,
Like,
I hope
the mom
so.
still-
And that's as a disabled person, I know that there's a lot of misnomers about, you know, if somebody helps a person who's brand new diagnosed with a disability and they open the door for them, that person's still dealing with life and they're going to have an attitude because of what they're experiencing, not that the person opened the door for them. So they're going to have an attitude. The person opens the door and the person's hearing this attitude thinking, gosh, disabled people are really rude. And they have no idea what's going on in that person's life, but that's their takeaway. So for me personally, when I'm in the community, I am overly friendly. I'm overly happy because I want people. I want to draw them in. Because if I do that, maybe next time they're going to look at someone and not have a bad opinion.
That's so great.
So great.
Bella says, I agree. That's my dream, inclusion. Yeah, inclusion. So anybody else have any solutions? I love Tammy starting us off on a positive note. This is very good. Okay, what are some of the barriers that you guys want fixed? We heard in our group, we heard about funding and access to assessments. We heard about access to support persons. We heard about What was some of the other things, Nina, that we heard about? You're so good at remembering all these things.
Well, we heard about people getting, like maybe they got their device, they got an iPad and it's like, here's your iPad, goodbye. We don't want to hear from you again. Needing support for technology and changing needs as they go on. We heard about people this is very much related to, failure to presume competence, but we heard about just like, in the same vein, we've given you have PECs, isn't that enough? You have like these like very sort of minimal choice icons, and that there's your communication. So, we heard the whole gamut, but, that's what we want to like, certainly we hear, as Bella was mentioning, the lack of communication partners and, partners to be there as communication partners, advocates, as Sue was saying, that is a huge theme. And so, we're very interested to hear like people's, thoughts on that and their vision of like, how that could change or what the world would look like, if it worked, on those topics.
And okay, here, and thanks, Nina. Tammy's, Rose is saying, in my work, there are people in wheelchairs who have to raise their head in order to talk to us because we are standing up. Next time, I will always remind myself to be in the same level or stoop down so they don't have to look up at me and can talk at the same height.
Not everybody likes that. I know I have friends that are in wheelchairs that I don't like when people kneel to me because then they feel like it's a production, which I get. So, I think it's hard to find that perfect fit for everybody. But for me, I think if people individually could speak up for themselves and feel confident that it's okay to ask. It's okay to say, hey, can you come to my level and talk? I think we should feel more confident as disabled community that we're okay and we're here just like they are.
Or you could say the opposite. You could say, if the person's kneeling down, you could say, oh, that's all right. I prefer that you stand up.
Yeah, absolutely. And let the person receiving that information not be so offended. I think people respond, and as a disabled person, we worry, at least I worry, that I'm going to offend someone and have them have a bad opinion of disabled as a whole. And that's what people tend to unfortunately do. It's not just me personally, but they'll have this opinion later, like the guy I said earlier, who was newly injured and did not deal with his disability, but they took it as, oh, it's all about that. Maybe he was just having a bad day.
Yes.
Maybe they were in a fight with their girlfriend. Who knows? People assume.
Right.
Never assume.
And so in the chat, Tommy mentions as I think a barrier is limiting communication access to wants and needs. And Tommy, if you feel like chiming in, feel free. But that also seems very much in the same vein of, where what I think that schools or regional centers consider adequate, communication access is this such a limited thing. It doesn't really capture, access to full general ed or, just meeting up with your peers or just a huge range of like life. And I think that seems like a huge problem.
Yeah, I think it ties right into what William and Bella said, which is, inclusion, access to community, all of that. You can't just walk around saying, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I have to go to the bathroom, like you want to joke around, you want to have a conversation. And it starts with people actually believing you have those thoughts. I think that's a big part of the problem, right? Is if people don't think you even have those thoughts, worries, ideas, sense of humor, then they're perfectly okay with you just being able to express your wants and needs, and hopefully you'll be safe and happy and life will be good, for the parent maybe, but not for the person themselves.
So along that line, to Tommy and the group, who needs to hear this message? Like, who needs to hear that we need presumption of competence, that there is more beyond functional needs? Who's missing that point?
Everyone.
I agree.
The
It's
world.
everyone.
The world.
Okay,
needs to
so,
hear it.
okay, good. Okay, that's a start.
A
All right.
billboard on Highway 80. I'm seeing it now.
Okay.
Billboards. Okay.
This is good. These are solutions, right? We need to get some, PSAs out there or something, maybe.
Yeah,
Huh?
seriously.
And whatever
I
the
mean-
virtual equivalent is of that,
Yeah.
on the fold.
Way for the world, yeah. Someone says there is something? No? Okay.
I think
So-
the positive note is that I think that things are changing. I think more conversations are moving in this direction. I listen to a lot of podcasts and there's more and more people showing more curiosity. I was listening to one today and I really appreciate this mom. Her daughter's 18 or about to turn 18. And she's always sort of been in the more traditional mindset, but she's looking for different points of view, different perspectives. She's having a little hard time integrating some of it, but she's honest about it. And I think open and honest conversations are really helpful, because I think that it runs the gamut. When you said who needs to hear it, I think it runs the gamut from parents through professionals, through administrators, through people running, regional centers and school districts and everybody, but it's not everybody in every area, but everybody needs to hear it. As many times as possible a day. My thing is, I always said the world needs to be wallpapered with your words, you guys. Those of you who can't use your speech to communicate effectively or reliably, like if we could just have your words constantly streaming on them, everyone could hear them all the time and not always have to rely on the incongruence between who you are and what you say. So anyway, I'll stop talking.
That is I love that streaming. That's a great idea to put like as a stream and on everywhere you go and everywhere you see. But I do, one of the things you raised, Tommy, this notion of being able to be honest and like a safe space. And that ties way back to the original points of what the points Tammy was making. Just if people could feel like, if they don't know, ask a question. If they feel uncomfortable, ask, or, and a safe space to listen, where people can bring up the stuff that, is so hard and not feel that they'll get retaliated against, by, whatever, there's always that fear that I should be so grateful. I got my device from, I fought for 2 years to get this thing. And now I'm, I still don't have a robust enough communication system. And so just places at all levels, hopefully among people like the conversation we're having today, but anywhere that it's safe to say, these are my, this is where things are falling short, or other people could say, I don't understand how to deal. I don't understand how to be with people who have a hard time communicating. So, I think those are really great points.
I just wanted to say real quick that I really agree with what Tommy talked about, because and that everyone needs to be aware of how to communicate, because I have a disability and most of us do, but we don't know what it's like to live with other disabilities. Like, for example, I have a friend who has chronic fatigue syndrome, and I couldn't imagine what it was like to have it. And to understand would involve starting an open conversation about that. And without really being open about it, it's really easy to say something ignorant or whatever. So yeah, that's just wanted to agree with that.
I also think that, Tommy, your idea and your personal experiences of listening to podcasts and current media forms, whatever they might be in 5 years or 10 years or whenever, they might change, but now podcasts are a big deal. It's a good idea that all of you guys, all of the people who use different forms of technology for any realm of their communication, whether it be input or output, to start, getting connected with podcasts or blogs. Like we have a blog here on our web, on the Communication Exchange, that we would love to put more information out there. But I think we have to get the word out to people other than ourselves, So because we can talk to ourselves till we're blue in the face and we're all happy about that. But, if you know someone who's blogging about access to, I don't know what people are getting access to, but it has something to do with newspaper media systems, or ways of being in the newspaper world, or ways of being a hiker, or I don't know, just any aspect, right? Communication affects everybody. So not having communication can affect everybody, right? So I think that your needs as people who communicate and have needs for support or different technologies or however, have a part in everybody else's world, And so putting that point out there is for everybody to hear wherever they're sitting, whether it be a family or an employer or a recreation person or grandparents. Maybe you have grandparents who could advocate to some grandparent blog that's, or what do you call them, podcast that's going on. That would be a way to go.
Also, Christine, Ashley in the chat asks, how do you tell people you need more time to respond if you can't get it out fast enough to respond in the first place?
Anybody got any ideas on that? Tim, do you have an idea on that? Or are you okay?
Actually, it was another point that I was going to make, but I'm going to let that go first. I think that's so important. I have friends who utilize AAC, and as an observer, when they're interacting with another person, I see that it does take a while to respond. And then conversations go on while that person is still trying to formulate a response. And then it's like they're overlooked. And that just, it just makes me so upset. So yeah, I would love to see a way that could be presented. I mean, short of a sign on their device that says, hey, give me time to respond. I don't know. That's a really great conversation to have, to figure out that problem, because I see it a lot, that there's definitely a deficiency there.
Tommy says maybe a quick button that says that. And William, I see you're generating something. So I know William has a solution to this. Bella, I know you have a solution to this. You want to share what you have, Bella, while William's creating? I'm just putting you on the spot because I know you have some. I'm guessing Tim has something. Ryan, do you have something on yours that you use? But Christine says, but using other modalities, speaking, writing, typing, not AAC. So Christine, you're talking about having a system other than speaking, writing, typing, or AAC to say that you need to have them accommodate your needs. That's what I'm taking.
No, Christine she's elaborating during all of those, using all of those, the speaking, writing, typing, not necessarily an AAC device.
Okay. So Ryan, were you saying something? No? Okay. Okay, sorry. William says, I have a saved introduction. Hello, I communicate through my iPad. It may take me a moment to type my thought, but I promise it will be worth the wait.
I
love that.
That is fantastic.
Me too.
Otto said there can be pre-programmed buttons, but even then some people are jerks and won't wait for you. So yeah, well, They're lost. Tommy says, Otto, sometimes people just aren't good listeners in general, and asking them to be present to wait isn't going to happen. It's their loss. Yeah. I think Bella's creating something. I don't know if some of you are not in visual fields, so I don't know if you're creating anything on your end. I think Otto's creating something too.
I noticed Christine was saying that her son, I think, doesn't like to use his AAC device. So I'm trying to think of what's a good way to get that point across without like a pre-programmed button or something. Maybe, I don't know if there's a gesture or something that could be done.
He doesn't like to use his device to communicate. Oh. Okay. Oh, because he's trying to speak. Okay.
Maybe just saying wait. I don't know if there's like a way to indicate that.
Yeah. Yes, severe praxia also writes on a whiteboard. Yeah, and then it was talking about a wait sign. Yeah, a wait sign. Yeah. You could put, the whole point is you want to get the message out there to them that they need to wait, right? And so however your system is set up, you're going to want to create that system. So if you're a person that wants to use their speech, maybe that's a word you really want to practice. Or maybe you want to have, if you like to use the whiteboard, maybe on the back of the whiteboard, you have a wait sign, the word wait. I'm writing to you. That kind, so that as you're writing, maybe they're seeing, you want to, you think of a way to visually, if you're not going to use a device that has an auditory button, to visually give that message. And then Sue said, many who use AAC don't like it because it's so laborious and time consuming. Right. Yeah. Let's see, Bella says, I have a please be patient while I create my message button. Okay. What else we've got? If he has to stop and use a motor skill to wait, say wait, what that disrupts his praxic motor skills trying to speak, it's complicated. Yeah. Well, I think that for everyone needs to come up with what's their way they want to say to us, the communication partner people, wait. Think of a way that I would ask Christine, I would ask your son or Sue, whoever that was, how do you want to tell people to wait? What do you want? What's it going to look like? See what he comes up with. William says, I have used visuals that say I have more to say. Okay, that's an idea. Otto says, we have a society of sound bites, so it seems like we are a generation of auditory ADD. Yeah. Tommy says, what visuals do you use? Yeah, William, what did that visual look like? I'm pausing because people are generating ideas here. Yeah, Christine said she's going to ask her son, and we'll change with each modality. Yeah. What I like is that you guys have this message that you're advocating for yourself. I think that's so important. Okay. Yeah, silence is okay. One is reminding us that silence is okay. Yes, this is what it takes when we're talking with people who use AAC, right? Everyone needs time. William says there are pecs with Velcro on my iPad at school. Okay.
You know, as we're sitting here and taking this time, I'm thinking even just this environment, creating it in a way that people can have access to this in bits and pieces where they do have to sit and wait and realize what it takes, you know, so society can practice the skill of waiting a little bit and slowing down. Would probably, if people could think of a way to sort of put that out in webinars or whatever and say, we're going to take the next, 10 minutes and just have an exchange where we wait for people to respond and practice it. It'd be nice.
Yeah, it's not something we're comfortable with as speaking people, right?
Right, like Lorna said, silence makes everybody very uncomfortable. But it's so important to learn to live with it.
Yeah. I think too that probably this whole silence idea that Lorna brought up, it probably, I'm thinking back to when I used to be in live person and I would go to schools and you go to a special day class and so many of the students were using or should have been using AAC. And those students, the students who using AAC were being passed over because the other students could respond faster, right? And so even our teachers, we have to help our special day class teachers and our general ed teachers get comfortable with the fact that you have to wait if you really want all of your students to participate. It's not going to go fast.
Right. And to be comfortable and make that clear to the whole class, let everybody feel, and especially in general ed, like it just, as Tammy said from the beginning, starting way back in elementary school at the earliest, times.
Otto says, I think we are out and about in society and people will get more used to us, like how Darlene knows to ask, are you responding to me or us, or you're creating a private message to your communication partner. Right, I'm just used to doing this whole, I don't know what you call me, a Zoom GJ person now, Zoom J. Used to doing this. And Tommy says, yes, it has to be modeled. We have to model it to change the culture. We do. Yeah.
I don't want to forget to come back to Tammy was going to make a point before we launched into this incredible.
Oh, yeah, Tammy, what was your
I don't know if I remember now. I'm like so absorbed in the conversation.
I know, this is so good.
Good stuff. Oh, I do recall. I think it's really important too to remember that communication is not just auditory, it's physical. And there's a lot of things that can be communicated with your eyes or your wrinkle of your forehead or body movement or gesture of my wheelchair. I joke around, I have a happy dance I do with my wheelchair. And I don't have to say a word to do that. So I think that we really need to remember that kind of coincides with the presuming competence is there are many levels of communication. Maybe teaching that in an environment where, hey, this means this or this means that, kind of getting people aware of that element. Maybe not every detail, but at least an awareness would be great.
I wonder if, and I don't know if there's any teachers on here on this chat right now, but are there parts of general ed curriculum that just focus on just that, on all the means of communication and teach the kids in the class, whoever they might be, that you have to pay attention to lots of different things when you're communicating? Because that would be somewhere that we could maybe advocate that we include, we broaden that to include people who communicate in different ways using AAC or support persons or different forms of timing. And just remember that it's not just how speaking people communicate. non-verbally. It's how everybody can communicate.
I have a friend who uses her eyes, and she doesn't use anything but her eyes. She doesn't use the eye gaze. She just goes up and down for yes and no. And then, you figure out ways to communicate with people. Everybody has all these amazing thoughts and feelings, and you just have to pull it out.
Let's see, is anybody, I'm looking to see, so I can peg anybody. Anybody, Lisa Zalagi, do you know the answer to that question? Is there a curriculum? Do you remember back in the day?
Okay, can you guys hear me? I'm driving. My schedule got changed for today, so I am in the car, but I'm fascinated by this conversation and loving it. And thank you everybody for sharing. To my knowledge, the years that I spent teaching, I don't recall any curriculum or any teacher ever doing it. I think the closest that was if a teacher was talking about the different types of intelligences, that they would, talk about appreciating the different way that people think and act and kinesthetic or artistic and all of that. But I think it's great, and I am 100% for the full inclusion from kindergarten on, and teaching everybody how to understand and empathize and just not be afraid. My daughter, for those of you that don't know me, my daughter has a disability and uses a wheelchair frequently because she has very severe epilepsy. And I'm always okay if I see kids staring at her, same experience. The moms will often, or dads will pull them away, and I'm like, no, I am happy to answer questions. I can see that they're curious and they maybe just want to know about my daughter, and I'm okay. I mean, how are they going to learn if they don't ask questions? So I've always been, with my daughter's permission, always been very open about talking about things and sharing information and just encouraging people to ask, because I did not know very much about the life of people with different disabilities before I had my own child, and then went and got my special ed credential. But no, I don't think, unless you have a really, really forward-thinking, sensitive teacher, I don't know of any curriculum that teaches non-spoken language. And we try to encourage that all the time, because my daughter as well, she speaks with her eyes, her face, her body language, all of that, but she no longer uses spoken language to communicate.
Thanks, Lisa.
Happy to share. I'm really happy to be part of this. Just listening to everybody has been, really wonderful for me. So thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's great. I think too that we can advocate that all of us as a society need to learn communication skills, right? And so it isn't just that there's a unit on how do you communicate with an AAC user or a person with a disability. It's how do we all communicate? And that's a society thing. It's not just a special needs thing. So that might be something we can look into, is like, how can we get in the curriculum? Right.
And just if I can jump in once more, and I'm sorry, I can't see if anybody else was getting ready to talk. I don't want to step on anybody, but one of the things we're getting ready to do is staff training and person-centered planning. And one of the things that we were listening to was this podcast about listening. And it was all about how sometimes the better you know somebody, the less you are likely to actually listen to them when you're talking, because you assume and so the whole emphasis was on how do you really listen to people? How do you slow down and make sure, like what you were just saying, Darlene, not just people with disabilities, but all of us, how do we really listen with intent and not assume we know what somebody is or isn't going to say? Obviously we need to presume competence, but just have those conversations where we slow down. And we do this with intent, and we do this with an openness to all the different types of and ways and means of communication that are available to us.
Yes. I want to read before it gets lost. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Is it Viri or Viri?
Viri.
Okay. So Viri says, nowadays with this whole social media and high-end technology, society is more familiar with acronyms in texting. So maybe create a program that would generate acronyms in typing into complete word out loud, like LOL. I think it will allow us to communicate even faster. And Viri, if you have they're shortcuts, they're called shortcuts. And you can put them into your non-fancy system. You can put them into your iPhones, but it means that you set up a sequence of letters that would say whatever the phrase is. Now, they can't be letters that actually go together to make a word because it will think you're making a word. So like TY would work, like oftentimes that's an acronym, thank you, but it won't work in the shortcuts because it could be type, it could be typhoon, so it can't be TY. But I don't know if that makes sense, but there are ways to create shortcuts in most pieces of technology at this point. I think that's what you're talking about.
But it's also a great idea because texting, it is like, that's something everybody's in some way can wrap their brains around, it's one
right,
of
and just feel free to use those, right? And so I know, Bella, you're always saying LOL to us.
I just wanted to point out something Otto mentioned further back in the chat, which I just think is just a twist on this as such an important point. As we were talking about kind of, communicating through body movement, and Otto said, yes, but my misunderstood body movements can be misinterpreted. And I just think that it's really important to keep that that issue in mind for, a lot of movement, that's again, broadening people's education about what it may mean when, there's different movements or sounds made, and with that it doesn't mean that they are necessarily without meaning, but it may not be a straightforward meaning. So, I just think it's broadening everybody's horizons on what communication means and in all of it. So I thought that was just a good point Otto made.
And then William went on to say, this is what we need to think about, not teaching not whole body listening. I'm not sure, William, did you mean teaching not to teach whole body listening? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But to teach the whole idea?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think he means that idea of, where they try and have, they've worked really hard at trying to teach William to make eye contact and turn his body and orient, and he may move differently sometimes, like Otto does, and doesn't mean you're not in tune and you can't be part of the conversation. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that all of us who don't have special needs need to stop telling people how people communicate who have special needs. Because you don't have to do it our way to be understood, right? So you don't have to be making eye contact with me. I send out the message, not me personally, but people send out the message that eye contact is the way people communicate. Well, not everybody communicates with eye contact, right?
Exactly.
So we need to stop saying that. Because then you who don't communicate with eye contact, or who don't use eye contact, get regarded as not communicating.
Right. That's why the whole range of possibilities, and Tommy pointed out, some body movements or sounds can often have the opposite meaning, yet that people will attribute it to, and that's why it's just a whole nother way of thinking. It's like we need many more glossaries than the standard playbook. I love, and Otto has a great comment, if I never hear quiet hands again, it will be great. I so agree. On my son's behalf, I agree.
Or say it better. Teachers can focus on teaching and not worry about you listening in the way. Yeah, teachers should focus on teaching, not worrying about how you're listening the right way, how you look right to be a listener. Yeah. Ooh, sounds so big. It's gonna make my head spin. Okay, so it's 10, it's almost 10 after 5. And I want to, so today we got some really, I think, some great inspirations. And DVU as a group will take some of these and see if we can start thinking of some channels that we can create some new opportunities to educate the world, and then show them and share them with you all, of course. But what are some ideas that you all have, either from takeaways from today, or maybe you came to this meeting thinking, I hope that they talk about, what are some conversation points that you want to have in regards to opening up access to communication for all of us?
Right. This is going to be a monthly, we're hoping to do this monthly on the third Tuesday of the month. So, yeah, we're so interested in other topics, topics that you want to have covered. Like Darlene said, if there was something like you were hoping we get into, whatever. But we also want to continue, like this conversation was so great to have a conversation. So, just speak out now, or, you can share, otherwise later on when you think about it, but we'd love to get some thoughts now if you have any.
I don't think so. We need to get John Stewart in the group.
Okay. We're thinking big.
What else do you guys want? I mean, I'm guessing that people want to talk about funding. No one needs the funding issues. Nobody has funding. And then I heard a lot today on supports, making sure everybody has the right supports.
Yeah, I think finding those communication partners that support people is just a huge thing. Huge.
Creating support people.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and also, us moms, it's not about us, but we tend to try to be the ones that you ask to make things happen. The thought, we were thinking about is if there could be like a pool, like in different communities, like there's the Orange County community and in various states and so forth, a pool of people that are trained where maybe, you have your one or two main communication partners, but maybe there's also a pool of people who, maybe they're only working part-time and they can sometimes work with, Otto, and they can sometimes go over to William or Bella, and where they're trained and comfortable and they can kind of be available, to be floaters almost, so that nobody ever feels like if my person leaves or gets sick, that's it for me. That vulnerability piece is so huge. Mostly for you guys communicating, but for us as parents, wanting that for you as well.
Right. I think maybe trying to find a way to make support persons a profession, like a career path kind of a thing, right? So that you don't have to create these little underground groups of people who everybody wants because there's only 10 of them.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. And really, I would love for you, those of you who are being supported to really think about what are those qualities of that person. And I also was thinking of talking to people who are communication partners, Darlene, and what are the aspects of that profession, whether you're an SLP or what is the term they use a lot now? Because they're trying to have, well, communication partners, but they're direct support professionals. They're trying to really give it more of a career path. Yes, because it is a very important work. It's not just, oh, you're just some person, it's very important work. And so I think like really trying to, when Reach did that conference years ago, and I'm spacing on the name of the gentleman that spoke, but he basically said, look, we tried calling it this, we tried calling it that, we tried all these different things. And I think what we need is a marketing campaign. And for some reason that just stayed in my mind all these years, because really it's about how is it presented and how do we talk about it, the language and everything. And so, yeah, if we could say, you know what, this is an amazing opportunity for you to get to know people that you would never otherwise get to know, who are incredible human beings, and learn to, partner with them in life and make their world better. It will make your world better, like to really rebrand, basically. It's all about branding. So anyway.
Well, if you think about it, like nursing, right, has you're a nurse or you're an LVN, right? And then you're I don't know, there's different ranks in a sense. Not that I like ranking people, but it's an educational system that we can encourage people to join into and to learn more about being effective partners for individuals who have any kind of needs, right? That might be something to advocate for. There's a few things in the chat I want to make sure we get out here. Otto started, and then William shared, there's just so everybody knows, if you look in the chat, you'll see it here. Scroll up to 5:10 p.m. This came out. Voice Options, which is a program through the Department of Rehab in the state of California, can assist you in getting devices and software or applications. It's not everything, but if an iPad can meet your needs, it might be what you need. Okay. So check out that. There's a link there to do that with. Christine had an idea of creating acronyms for the issues talked about here and start using them on social media. So other speaking people start using them and understanding them. That's a good idea, Christine. Okay, I'm taking a moment to visualize that, how that would play out. Otto's and some of his friends are always big on putting together some hashtags. So that might be a way to go as well. Okay. Anything else as far as next points of conversations for October? Should we do, because we can get a guest speaker in as well, right? Maybe we should invite some people to talk about access to systems, communication systems, if that's a need.
I'd love to see an educator come in and talk about what's going on in the schools.
Okay.
I'd love to. I really think that if you start the kids really young, like my grandson, he's 2, and I'm excited because he's going to have exposure to someone who's disabled. And yeah, I mean, now he knows grandma's too weak to do stuff, so he'll pick up my arm if it falls. It's just, and there he's 2 years old. So kids learn quickly.
Absolutely. Through modeling, right?
Yeah.
And experiences. Absolutely. I was just saying that to the group today. Yeah, Amy Henready would be great. Yeah, maybe we can get Amy to join us next month even. And because I think that
started reaching out to her. So this is, now we have a specific ask. So perfect.
Right. And maybe we can start with the education piece. I think it is, I too think it's key to molding our futures, right? That's what education's for. And if we're thinking about presuming competence, we need to advocate that everybody get an education that's educational, right? A lot of people in their families would say, we'll do the make the bed thing. We'd rather you do an education, right? I mean, I know that everybody has their own needs, and I totally believe there should be a continuum, but
it's interesting when you think the history that we've learned in our lives about our country and all these different things. And disability has been there since day one, but we've never taken that opportunity to educate people about it. I just find that
that is weird, huh?
Kind of, yeah, if you think about it in that sense, we've never used that as a teaching parameter.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. What about community outreach with government officials and media showing the difference and competence? A media marketing campaign like Tommy was mentioning. Yeah. How about the administrators? They need to get on the roller coaster. Encourage the administrators. Yeah, we need to get to the administrators. I think too that in this time when there's so much advocacy for so many different things, you know, transgender, women's rights,
COVID.
COVID, you know, warriors, wounded warriors, whoever you are, right? That you have to be, you know, included in that conversation. That it shouldn't be, oh yeah, you too. It should be included in the conversation.
So we should, some of us put together a group that goes with all differences and go and talk to kids and have a presentation. Back in the day, we used to have assemblies as kids. I don't know if they do that still, but
Sure.
really though, I mean, why not? And have a
I
little
love
skit scenario where you, I don't know, you have somebody approach someone who's non-verbal and who's using AAC, and you can see that they're being interrupted and showing how terribly rude that is. But then that's an opportunity to show this is the right way to do it. You know, this is a better way to do it. Just all kinds of different scenarios you could come up with.
That's an awesome idea. I love that. Otto's reminding us that Judy Human says disability is the only protected class that we will all belong to at some point due to aging, illness, or injury.
Here, here.
So
Something
true.
to think about. Yeah. Gotta be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Cutting your bridges, you know. That's really great. Okay. All right. So Ed says, a friend of mine puts it, you'll get a disability if you're lucky because the other option is early death. Grim but true. Ed, mine's the opposite. Live long, die short. Okay. So we'll put together some ideas here and we'll let you know what who we can sign up to be a guest speaker. But I think I like, unless people think it's a bad idea, I like to leave a lot of opportunity for us to talk amongst ourselves too. And because I think we want to be the movement, right? We want people to inspire us and give us some direction and to listen, but we want to be we're the group that's going to make the difference. William says, thank you. Otto's typing something. Perhaps Bella might be as well, I'm thinking. Oh, says choo choo, full steam ahead. The train has left dysfunction junction. Bella says, yes, I agree, Darlene. Yeah, we want to be the movement. Okay. You all have your voices here. That's the big deal. All right. Well, tell your friends, watch for more to come. And Tommy says those words would not be pre-programmed in your system. Yeah, Tex isn't going to say choo-choo and dysfunction junction. Yeah. That is the difference between functional communication and needs and wants, right? We got to change the definition of functional communication, right? It's not functional for me to just say I need to go to the bathroom. That's not functional, obviously. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for really
Thank you.
interacting. It's fantastic. And we'll see you in 4 weeks.
Great
Take
to
care.
see you guys. Bye.